In the first hour and a half of our podcast for this movie, we covered 2 pages of my notes. I have 3 more pages left. So if 2 pages is an hour and a half, then 3 more pages will be just about 2 hours.
Yeah, we got the stuff out the way.
I have a page left.
I have like 2 pages.
What if I promised not to talk as much?
Okay, I don't believe you, but okay.
Yeah, we know better.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Oh, welcome to Screen Share and Chill. My name is Kelly.
My name is Lord of the Rings. All I do is Lord of the Rings. I eat Lord of the Rings and I sleep Lord of the Rings. Hi.
We call him Keith.
My name's Jamie, and I've noticed that the Lord of the Rings allegories are popping up more and more in our everyday conversation between the 3 of us.
Yes.
Maybe I should start calling myself Kelimir or something like that. I'll feel a little bit more in line with...
I have like Stockholm Syndrome. I've literally started playing the Lord of the Rings online again, and I'm watching YouTube reactions to the movies. Like, what am I fucking doing?
It's a 24/7. You start showing up for work barefoot, and your boss is like, what the fuck?
It's like one of those videos that's like 5 hours after watching Lord of the Rings, 24 hours after
10 o'clock, and you walk out the door, and they're like, where are you going? Second breakfast?
I'm not fucking kidding. I watched the hour and 24-minute Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Rings reaction YouTube video, and I was thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? But I was enjoying myself, so whatever.
I loved it that we were playing D&D last night, and the 3 of us are there, and a couple other people are there, and something happened, and the first reference I made was, you tell me your name, Horsemaster, and I shall tell you mine, and the 3 of us laughed, and the other 2 are going, what the fuck is he doing? Make Lord of the Rings? Or maybe they didn't even...
There were like 4. Yeah. There were 4 references directly to Lord of the Rings last night, and I was like, oh... we are far too into the Lord, and we still have a whole nother movie to watch, y'all, and it's like 4 hours long.
We also practically have a whole nother movie to still talk about, so let's get going.
Well, if memory serves, when last we left our hobbits, they were falling asleep in the bosom of Treebeard, and we were about to join Aragorn and Gandalf, having a little conversation now that Gandalf has returned as Gandalf the White. It's kind of this is the first conversation we're seeing between 2 of our main protagonists since that happened. And Keith, I think you said you wanted to say something about this.
I just like it because it's very intimate. It's just them. He's telling Aragorn that Sauron is afraid, and it's like just a nice little moment to see them together.
I just think they're neat.
Yeah, I just think it's neat.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to see Gandalf back, and this is where he says something along the lines of he's starting to have his memories coming back and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Knowing a little bit more of the lore, because obviously, as you may know, I haven't read the books. Knowing a little bit more of the lore, knowing that Gandalf was still alive during this process, and because of the Maya that he is, or whatever they call their beings, he never was truly dead. He was just existing in a time and a place outside of Ardur, the planet. Or the realm, whatever you want to call it. Some of these terms are a little extra nerdy, and I'm not quite at that level. Maybe I should ask one of you 2 hobbitses to clarify some of these technical terms.
You're using terms that I have not looked into, so you have out-nerded me yet again, Callie.
Hey, I'll place that crown of thorns upon my brow.
Congratulations.
Also,
thanks.
Just off the jump, my brain has been addled with substance use, so I may still be getting things wrong that you ask about the book. Dear listener, if something's wrong or you want to call attention to something, please let us know.
Judge him.
We will read your comment live and scold one of us for it, probably me. And,
yes, judge him. Having it in defense of it's impromptu. Make Keith defend himself against the masses of people telling him he's wrong. You're wrong and stupid.
I'm a stupid dummy head.
I feel like we could all end up on the wrong and stupid end of this.
You know what I meant.
No, you messed it up. You're stupid.
After the scene, we have the moment where I feel is one of the most unbelievable in this huge fantasy epic. This is one of the most unbelievable scenes in the entire trilogy. And it makes me like kind of cringe a little bit for the movie because they didn't have to do it quite the way they decided to do it. Is this in the books, the scene where they hide underneath the cloak and it looks exactly like a rock?
Yes.
Don't think it's exactly like that.
Right, like it just says that the elven cloak camouflages them. Like that's what it's meant to do. So it's not like they're under the big plastic rock that is very clearly what
Right.
This doesn't ruin the whole trilogy for me, but this is the first time where I was like, "Oh, come on,
Look, man,
that would never work that way."
It's elvish magic. It's doesn't really say it because I mean those are their elvish cloaks, right?
Yes.
But it's not supposed to be that he literally looks like a rock.
camouflaged. Yeah.
There's elvish magic at play, just like with the
It's that
rope, right?
Yeah, your eyes pass over him. Like they just pass
So
over.
an elvish cloak is one step away from a cloak of invisibility.
Kind of.
Like somehow they didn't mention this. This is new information to the viewer of the
It's
movie.
not
Like, we didn't
in the
know
books,
that they were
though.
walking around with, and it's not in the books either. So they just made
no,
up
it's-
that
No,
this.
it's not.
in the
It's
books.
not new information.
It's
Oh,
not
okay,
new
okay,
information in the
okay.
books. Yeah, it's very like
Oh,
they
gotcha,
talk about the
gotcha.
fact that the
But-
elven cloaks will keep them from unwanted eyes.
Imagine if Harry Potter, you're watching Harry Potter 1 and they didn't mention the invisibility cloak until they're ready to raid the library and Harry goes, "Oh, by the way, I've got an invisibility cloak." Everybody be like, "What the fuck? Why didn't you mention that before now? All of a sudden now you have a magic cloak? Why didn't you tell me?"
My main gripe with the way they do it in the movie is that he clearly just like hastily shoves it over himself, but when they undo it, it's like tucked under rocks, like you can see rocks
Yeah,
coming
right.
out. So,
yeah, the rocks actually fly up when they pull it away.
And the people are just too close. When you can see through that little bit of light and you can see their feet. I'm like, "No, just make them up the hill a little bit. That takes care of it."
magic, Kelly. It's magic. It's
It's too much. It ruins my suspension of disbelief. It makes me remember that I'm just a brain inside of a skeleton mech with meat pulling it around, and I don't enjoy.
An old
sorry, but
man,
that was
an old
so
man
soothing,
fought
Keith.
a fire demon for 7 days and died and came back to life. And the elvish magic on the cloak is too much for you.
He came back for my sins, and I can't just believe in the elvish cloaks.
Right, exactly. Jesus, Kelly.
How ungrateful am I? I need to do 10 Hail Mary Pippins, and
Heretic.
I'm picking a nit here, and it's not that big of a deal. But even when I watched it the first time, I was like, I don't know if I buy that. They could have seemed a little too much for me, a little too fantastic. But one thing of note, watching it this time, that really caught my eye was, wow, those humans in Mordor, huh? Now, two things that I observed here. One, there are humans in Mordor.
Uh-huh.
They're just men that are living in Mordor.
Southerners.
That's
what they're called.
They have the accent and everything.
That's what they're
Howdy,
called.
y'all. We're gonna go invade Gondar.
That's literally what they're called.
Sauron gonna build the wall, man.
Look out, you might step on one of them there habits.
I am appalled by both of your southern accents, and Keith, you are from the south. Y'all just don't know how to do a southern accent any justice at all.
There are a lot of different southern accents, and even the ones that sound fake and corny, it's a different part of the country that if you're like, that doesn't sound like Georgia, well, maybe it's northeastern Kentucky. Oh, it's not, it's a rural area right outside of Appalachia, who knows. One, there are humans in Mordor, so that makes me start thinking about it like from a political science point of view of going, so are we doing collective punishment on any human born in Mordor? Are we just assuming that if you're born within these borders, you're an evil entity?
Yes.
You have evil motives, you're an evil person.
Yes.
That's very reductive for a narrative that is largely about appreciating other cultures.
Well, yes,
You know what I'm saying?
and no. They are coming to Mordor. They are not in Mordor. They are signing up to fight for Sauron.
That is true.
So there are no humans that live in Mordor.
Except aside from the ones that have entered treaty and can't come to be forces there, I suppose you could say they now live in Mordor. But I don't think there's any naturally occurring like townships and stuff within the borders of Mordor. It's like a fucking hellscape.
Yeah, well, but there are settlements for orcs. They have restaurants and stuff. So like,
Right, yeah, that's orcs though.
and the whole point in Sauron, I mean, to get a little meta further, is that he wants to he wants to put order on the universe. That's his number one goal. Everything's too chaotic. Free will is too chaotic. I need to impose order on the entire universe. What kind of order is there if there's it's just a mud pile? Like I'm sure there are towns in Mordor. Like on the maps, there are towns in Mordor.
Well, there's
I wonder what it's.
in
Maybe
the
it's
books,
like Ogrimmar
there's-
from World of Warcraft.
No, there's
I don't
a
know.
great deal of like abandoned towns where humans have been run out and stuff. That's part of the
All right, I've Googled it. During Sauron's reign in Mordor, the Dark Lord gathered many beings to serve him, including humans, orcs, and trolls. So he gathers them to him, and so therefore, yes, they are bad.
Well, But now I'm curious, do humans live in Mordor?
There's actually an entire Reddit conversation about this.
Oh, yeah, here's the conversation. Does
Yep.
Mordor have a civilian population, or is it all evil?
By Jaded Toon.
Yeah, it says Mordor was home to huge cities, smaller towns, dwellings, brothels, restaurants, bars, inns. It was only the area immediately surrounding Barad-dûr that was barren of life. So, like, it makes it sound like you don't go from having a decent population to, like, nothing. Even if they were trying to commit a genocide, as we've seen several times in our planet's history, a genocide, to quote the Reapers from Mass Effect, a genocide is a long, gradual, slow process.
Yes,
So-
actually, Rings of Power kind of answers this, because what is known as Mordor is like a mountainous area, and there are places in there. Sauron activates Mount Doom, and it like brings ruinous calamity to all those places, and people are fleeing, and those that can't flee get assumed into Sauron's army as they close off Mordor. So
But then, like, if you have a male and a female human in Mordor and they have a baby, is that baby inherently evil? Like, no, we would think there's a certain amount of tabula rasa to that baby has a chance to become good. So then that means that by default, there are good humans that are living in Mordor
Look,
under the yoke of Sauron.
you sound
Following
suspiciously
Sauron.
like an orc lover, Kelly.
Hey, what I do in my own time,
Following Sauron makes you sterile.
just because I'm an orc lover, we established a few episodes ago, we don't kink shame. Okay? Like,
just
if I
kick
love
ass
orcs,
why.
that's between me and the orcs. As long as they're consenting and... So, but
But
back
can
to the
they
humans.
consent?
The other thing,
Are they capable of consent? Do they have that much consciousness?
they have sentience. I mean, unless we start putting an IQ level on, you have to have a certain IQ to be able to ride any
Look,
ride.
let me get my tools, and I'm going to measure these orc skulls, and we'll find
You
out.
have to have an IQ this high to ride this ride. So, like, but those humans that do the wonderful job of standing right next to two hobbits and not seeing them because of elvish magic, woo! They, I gotta say, they got some pretty sexy eyes going on. Like, they put on the right amount of eye. They're wearing, like, if it's a guy, his guy shadow is amazing.
Yeah, they got the
If
cat
not,
eye
that
thing
woman-
going.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know who is wearing that Mordor armor, but hello, how are you? Here's my
Well,
phone number. Give me a call.
We do know that sort of eye makeup actually serves a purpose of keeping you from being blinded when you are an
I know. I'm feeling that purpose right now. Let me tell you.
When you're in a barren landscape where the sun is beating down on you endlessly, whether it is hot, cold, or anything, that helps keep the glare from your eyes and therefore makes you a better fighter. That's why the football players wear it.
So after the magical rock cloak, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the tree eating the hobbit is like lifted out from the Tom Bombadil sequence and
Yes.
added here.
Yes, yeah. I don't remember it being in Fangorn Forest myself either.
Yeah. So basically, that's one of the times they get rescued by Tom Bombadil. Is old man Willow starts swallowing Pippin or Merry or whichever one of those dumbasses gets swallowed.
It was probably Pippin.
Yeah.
He's definitely
sounds
more
right.
the dumbass.
And so just wanted to note that's a little bit of Peter Jackson pulling some of the content that was cut from the Tom Bombadil stuff back in a different spot.
Yeah, that is an extra scene too. That was not in the theatrical release.
Right.
Yeah, and you can see why they pulled it from the Bombadil scene, because they just removed Bombadil from the entire narrative, and they put it here because it's still an interesting scene, and it shows you that not all the trees are pleasant, and this is how a tree could get you.
Mhm.
They're going to get you. But also, you can then see, again, further why it was cut from the theatrical release, because, we can live without that. It's not.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't really affect the narrative that much.
There is in this area a lot of unneeded exposition. A lot of it added in by the extended cut, but just in general, there's a
Yeah.
lot of extra here.
This is where they talk about the tree wives, right? Or the end wives?
Yeah.
I believe so. 'Cause they're talking about all the forest and how there's too few of them and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah, he lost his wife. They lost all their end wives, which at first sounds kind of silly, but as the story goes on, it becomes a little bit more sad. And it just becomes, like, even when he says, I don't remember what they look like
it's like, oh, yeah.
oh, wow.
There's,
Like,
there's nothing worse than a like sad, lonely old man to get the tears going out of me. You know?
yeah, especially a sad, lonely old man that his wife is out there somewhere and it's been so long he doesn't remember what she looks like. Oh my God, come here, give me a hug. Here's some Jell-O. What do you want? What do you want, buddy? But after that, we go to Rohan again, and we see King Theoden upon his throne being, taken care of by Éowyn, and that's his niece, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then also, this is where Theoden's son is finally dying.
Mm-hmm.
Theodred, is that his?
Yes, Theodred.
I feel like I'm stepping through a minefield right now trying to name these characters.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Every step is like Theodrinded. Anyway, so Éowyn is taking care of the dying or dead son. And I gotta say, like, I don't talk about, I try not to go on and on about women's appearance and all that stuff because I don't want to overly sexualize people, but she looks gorgeous in this white dress. Like, there's something about, like, the way her blonde hair that's not, like, super shiny blonde. It's got a little bit of darkness to it. And this white dress with her freckles and pale skin. I was just smitten by her in the scene. In, like, even in
her
other scenes
face
where
is all
she's
wet with tears. She is so beautiful to see a crying woman.
Hey, no, I'm just talking about, like, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a little bit of vulnerability that I find endearing too. I don't know. Because I do remember seeing her in other scenes in this movie, and she's not, like, this is the scene that stands out where I'm like, God, she looks really fucking good here. And I think if it's partially, like, the way that she's carrying herself, and I think that white dress looks really fucking good on her too.
Well,
but
I think
maybe I'm wrong.
Wormtongue looks really good here with his putrid skin and his waxy sheen. He's really...
Brother,
Hey, that is a choice. You can put that out there.
Again, we don't kink shame.
And Brad Dourif, I mean, you could do worse, young man. You could do worse than Brad Dourif. So
Hi, everybody. It's Brad Dourif.
They made him physically disgusting to look at. Like, they even greased his hair up. It's such a good character, like, reprencon. He's just... I don't like him. I don't want to look at him.
Well, you know he's immediately a bad person because he doesn't have shining white teeth. Remember, I made that observation before. As soon as you see that he's got slightly yellowed teeth, you know, oh, he's a bad guy. I know it. It's something I forgot to point out in the Treebeard scene I wrote down here is that there's got to be some kind of joke that could be made about the Treebeard losing his wife. That's like a boomer joke. I lost my wife, and boy, am I glad she leave.
You suck.
Well, I mean, do we want to say anything about the Brad Dourif being Weasley into her ear?
I mean, he's trying to get with her. That's his prize or whatever, right?
Was it working?
No.
Like, because you see her kind of leaning in for a second, and then she pulls back and says, "Your words are poison." I kind of got the read that maybe it was starting to work a little bit. Like, it's obviously magic. It's not his pure charisma and appearance. There's magic going on there. And it feels like he almost got her.
Well, yeah, Sauron is like channeling through him.
Yeah, I mean, watch it again sometime and try to see it from my reading that there's a moment there where she starts to come under his spell, but she pulls back because she's so repulsed by him.
I saw that.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that makes it even creepier because even she is that close to falling under his spell, and what happens to a beautiful woman that he's in love with?
Yeah,
she falls under.
I did notice that she didn't fight him touching her face, which seems like
nope, exactly
red flag.
Yeah, if the creepy guy that you're worried about killing everybody around you, and you think he might be wanting to assault you, and then he starts touching your face, you would pull back. You would think. But interesting musical note that as Aragorn and Gandalf are riding up to the gates of Rohan. Wait, is this town? Rohan is just the land. What is this town called?
I'm trying to think. The actual area has a slightly different name. It's very similar, but slightly different.
Well, as they're riding up to the gate, we hear a little bit of the Rohan theme and a little bit of the Isengard theme. And I love that those, again, you might not notice this when you're viewing it just passively or you're watching it and you're like taking in the visuals and thinking about the story. But while he's riding up to the gate or while we're seeing that image right before, I don't remember exactly which moment it is here, but we heard the Isengard theme combined with the violin or viola or whatever that is for the Rohan, that sad theme.
That's awesome because, they are blended at this point, right? Isengard has its claws and it's pushing its magic over Rohan.
Yeah.
And I think I actually have it. I wrote it down here at Theodred's death. So it might have been like on that deathbed that we were hearing those two themes together, which that makes sense because part of the reason why this young man died and part of the reason why this kingdom, like you just said, it's the Isengard theme is poisoning the Rohan theme.
I fucking love the look on Gandalf's face when they try to take his staff, and he's like, "Oh, you would not part an old man from his walk." It's like,
I'm such a simple old man.
Yeah, you wouldn't push Grandpa down the stairs, would you?
And the wink that he gives Viggo right after, or I'm sorry, Aragorn right afterwards. It's so subtle that if you blink, you won't notice how little his wink is. But if you were looking at him, it would be so obvious. Oh yeah, he's in the know.
I have to correct myself. Rohan is the kingdom. The city is Edoras.
Okay, right. That's what I thought. It was Rohan. That wasn't the name of the place they were at. It's just the overall area. Another thing too, that's a little bit of symbolism. As Aragorn and Gandalf are riding up to the gates, the banner for Rohan falls off of its flagpole and lands on the ground
and blows slightly away.
And it's not that it was torn down just from misuse and being worn down. You know, it wasn't forcefully ejected. It's just withering away, much like the king. I'm sure there's a lot of symbolism in the books as well, things like that you can see little visual images of what's happening behind the scenes.
Also love how Gandalf instantly just talks shit to Wormtongue. There's no appeasement here.
Yeah,
he's like here to fucking write the record, you know.
Well, he saw his teeth as soon as Wormtongue opened his mouth. He was like, "Well, you're obviously a bad guy. I'm not gonna."
Like I said, Wormtongue and Theoden in this area are the most two and three of the most off-putting characters in the entire show, in the entire series.
Yep, and speaking of Gandalf going off on Wormtongue, I don't write exact lines in my notes very often, but I wrote this line because I want to commit it to memory.
I have not passed through fire and death to bandy crooked words with a witless worm.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, what a good line. Bandy crooked words with a witless worm. So it's beautiful. If Tolkien wrote that, or whoever wrote that, whether it was the writing team for this movie or Tolkien, mwah, chef's kiss. That is, they knew how to insult back in the day in a way that was so classy and intricate that we've lost a lot today. Like nowadays, it would be like you broken, bro, or
you're stupid,
or something like that. It wouldn't be bandy crooked words.
To Bilbo's line, what is it? I half of you less than I would like to, and
I ain't even gonna try that shit, man.
Half of you less than I should, or something like that.
You could write it down on a piece of paper and have me read it, and I'd still fuck it up. So
yeah, I'm sure it took a few takes for him to get it correct as well, because it's quite the tongue twister.
I don't remember what you guys were saying about it, but I think that the makeup on Theoden is fucking fantastic.
No, yeah, I was saying that it's that he had to sit in the chair for 9 hours for that shit. And the only thing that I said that was slightly negative about it is like, really 9 hours for that? I mean, it's good, but I mean, I saw what they do in other TV shows and movies and stuff like that with a lot less time. It just feels like it could have been optimized. That was my only complaint, because I mean, it's good, but it's not so good that I'm like, oh, now I see where they spent like almost 10 hours with this poor man sitting in a goddamn chair.
I don't know. I feel like I can see it when they do the transformation, which is
individuals' hairs.
Yeah, like it's the transformation. It looks, I don't know, so clean. Like I love it. It's. I guess they digitally blended, but it's like perfect. It's I don't know.
It's funny that you say that it's so perfect to you, because to me it was like this reminds me of the 80s. Like it looks like when you had Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox, and one of them has like hair stapled to his face, and the other one has no hair stapled to his face, and they just blend between the two with it's just fade in, fade out.
Right, but the fade in is controlled here in such a way that I feel it's way more. I don't know. It's extreme and subtle at the same time. It feels like to me.
It didn't bother me, but it didn't strike me as anything remarkable in a positive way. I was like, oh, this is another one of those old effects done well.
Well, you're just a cynic that doesn't know how to have fun and enjoy things. I have to point out that sometime between the transformation and him being told that his son has died, he gets a haircut.
That's convenient. That is super convenient. That's one of the superpowers. It was the Elvish Cloaks that did it.
So,
the Elvish Cloaks gave him a haircut.
But we all know we don't see every beat of every moment in the movie, and obviously a king who has been left untended for years, even when he does come back a little bit, is still disheveled. He is a king. You cannot have a disheveled king.
He needs a little grooming.
He needed a little grooming.
When you get to a certain age as a man, he's got to pay attention to the ear hair and, the neck hair a little bit.
The nails needed to be trimmed down, cleaned up a little bit. He probably took a shower, I'm guessing.
He feels I don't know. He feels like the type of guy that if like during all this big heavy shit going on, your barber is here, my lord, he'd tell him to fuck off. It's just I just
What if during the scene the barber was there sprucing him up as we're talking?
I would like that better, I think, actually.
And nobody acknowledges the barber. He's just bouncing out behind to the right and left,
One of them probably went to tell him, and they were like, "My king, you need to go bathe."
Yeah.
And everybody just refused to talk to him.
I'm back. Well, you're mostly back. You're mostly back, my liege. You'll be fully back once we get rid of the aroma, my lord.
Yeah, I
Nobody
gotta
wants
say,
to come within 3 feet of you, so can we go take care of that?
he doesn't look like he's changed his long johns in 9 months, and the way he was sitting in that chair before, I doubt he went to the bathroom, like the official bathroom.
Does Grima tell him, "Go poop, my lord"?
I don't think he had to tell him. I think it just kind of happened.
Well, that kind of bleeds into one of my questions here as book readers. Like, so is Sauron possessing Theoden directly? Is it Sauron possessing Theoden directly? Is it Grima Wormtongue possessing? Is anybody possessing? Or is this all just severe power? Because he speaks with Sauron's voice later, right?
Yes, I believe it's more like he's in thrall.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
possessed.
say. Yeah, in the book, it was more like just absolute mind control. And so I think that was the movie's way of showing that Saruman had complete control.
Does Sauron speak through his mouth in the book?
I believe he speaks his words. Yeah, I think so.
Because it
I
comes
don't think
out
it
in
was
his tone
voice.
and everything.
Yeah. I don't think
They
it was
don't
his
describe it
voice.
as being his voice, but I think it's recognized as being the voice of Saruman.
I think it's partially the way he talks to Gandalf.
So doesn't that kind of imply like a full possession?
No.
Like, we don't watch Exorcist and think that the little girl was just thralled, and every once in a while, the voice of the demon came through. What's the difference between the Exorcist girl and Theoden?
It was a sorcerer instead of a demon. Duh.
And he's not there. I don't think he wouldn't be in his own body if he was possessing Theoden. He's channeling into Theoden. He's not.
Okay. Not that it matters. I mean, this is really just to serve the question of who tells Theoden to go poop. And if nobody's reminding him, then how... Like, the first thing he needs to do is go change out of those fucking clothes.
That's what I'm saying. That's what happened. There was a whole cleanup scene that they left on the cutting room
Who's
floor.
got a poopy butt? Who's got a poopy butt? Who you've got a poopy butt, my lord. And of course, the Lord of the Memes, where we get to, "You have no power here." Mm-hmm. That is a wonderful line delivered so, like, villainously wonderful, like a devilish glee to it, that I absolutely adore the way he delivers that. I could watch that
the cackle
over and over again.
Yes.
You have no power here. Oh, that's so beautiful. But then Gandalf responds with, "Ha ha, bitch, I'm wearing white." Whoosh!
Yeah.
And he says, "I got a new outfit, I got new clothes." And everybody's like, "Oh my god.
Damn, Gandalf.
Damn Daniel."
yeah. It's back to the, he had to do it to him.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so it shows you whenever you're feeling down, maybe just go get a shower, put on some clean clothes. You might make the transformation like Gandalf did, going from the gray to white. He passed through fire and death, not to bandy crooked words
with a witless worm.
Coming back to a serious note, it feels like different characters in this are kind of analogs, intentional or otherwise, to different human conditions. And it feels like Theoden, at least the way he's represented in the movie, and I'm curious if it's the same in the book, is he's an analog for depression, right? As much as Gollum is an analog for addiction, Theoden is an analog for depression, it feels like.
Yeah, I can see it.
I mean, he's written very much... There's not a lot of change between how he's written and how he's portrayed. It is very similar. So
it's this overbearing depression that almost, it's like you have to admit that it's beyond your power to solve. That's the first step of AA even, is like, I can't do this on my own. Somebody else has to help me. And getting help, whether it be going to counseling or talking to your friends or whatever that entails, finding outside help other than you to get you out of your funk. And then when he gets out of his funk, I love it because he doesn't just automatically become good and everything's fine and the world, I'm going to go out there and kick some ass. No, now he's got a process. all the pain that he's been kind of hiding from the last few months. And he's got to cry those tears. He's got to get down on his knees and mourn his son's death and deal with the fact that his kingdom may be overrun soon, or he might look like a fool abandoning a town to orcs when they're not under that much danger. Or, he's actually dealing with his life along with the weight of all the sadness that it didn't just magically leave him. He's just learning how to manage it and learning how to live with it.
We spend a lot of time sort of in Brohan with the what's the king is back, and main thing that I wanted to talk about in this spot is the line that Gandalf says, which another just great quote is I've walked this earth for the 300 lives of men, and now I'm out of time, or and now there is no time.
Yeah.
That's a good little.
I've heard a phrase by military friends a lot: "Hurry up and wait."
Yeah,
you spend months and months and months just staring at a wall sometimes, and then all of a sudden you've got to be on the other side of the world in 7.3 hours.
Right,
that kind of thing.
The will they, won't they of Eowyn and Aragorn. I don't remember that being in the books. It feels very added to the movie. Is that right?
She was very into him in the books. He was not, because he is very much in love with Arwen.
In fairness, I think that if anybody watches this movie and they think that there was tension between Aragorn and Eowyn, maybe that's a bit of a Rorschach test. Maybe that shows that you wanted there to be something, because if you really look at his actions, he never does anything that leads her on.
Yeah,
he treats her with respect. He treats her like a fighter, like somebody that deserves to be spoken to as a human adult kind of thing, but he never caresses her hand or holds her close to him, or there's never a shy glance.
Look,
there
Kelly,
is from her, but not from him.
Treating a woman like a human being is flirtatious in this world.
Oh, the bar is on the floor, I take it.
Yes.
So there is hope for idiots like us, Keith. There's hope someday.
I feel it's embellished for the movie. Like, there aren't that many scenes or passages about it in the book, and it's kind of a continuing thing almost all the way to the end of the movie here on this one.
Oh, her part of it was definitely through the whole thing. Because I
appreciate
remember
your opinion, Jamie, but that sounds like something a silly woman would bring up in this conversation. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Her part of it is definitely continued through the whole book. There is a scene in The Return of the King that makes mention of her hopes at that point. So, in the books.
Well, right, but I mean, it's carried out, I don't know. It just feels like there's more of it in the movie than there was in the books. And probably for good reason. It gives, it gives you a good little who will they, won't they for the movie. I just wanted to point it out.
Well, and I think too, in the books, it's really easy to point out what she's thinking, because you can do that. It's a lot more difficult to point that out in a visual form.
Even if this was not in the book at all, and this was completely invented for the movie, it's fine, because it's a little side adventure that allows us to have something to care about during these moments where we're seeing a lot of preparation, a lot of plans are being made. This is the calm before the storm and for those of you reading the book for the first time, and for those of us watching the movies for the first time, Helm's Deep is the first really big fucking battle we get. So now you've had many, many hours, even more if you're reading the book, that are building up to this big battle. So you need this build up of tension slowly over time. And this gives us something to really pay attention to while the buildup of tension is happening in the foreground, and then background and foreground and background kind of thing. Now, it could be argued that maybe that time could be better spent. If I were to pose a different Lord of the Rings trilogy to you, and in the Two Towers, instead of us spending this much time with Eowyn and Aragorn in their faux romance, what if we spent that time with Gimli and Legolas, and we got to see more of them, or we saw more of Gimli and Aragorn?
Romance?
Yeah, or even Gimli and Theoden getting to know each other, or Legolas talking about the differences between how they govern the Elven realm versus how the humans govern in Rohan. That kind of stuff. Those kind of conversations could have been really cool. But,
you said bromance, and it gave me an epiphany. Brohan.
The Riders of Brohan. Yeah. The Riders of Bromance.
If I was in a frat, I would definitely call me and my group of friends the Riders of Brohan.
I feel like that's the episode title. The
Riders of Brohan. It's pretty
The
good.
Riders of Brohan have a Riders of Bromance. All right.
Hey, look, just I want to point out we're at 37 minutes. Kelly, maybe you want to get a little selective with the points that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I only got like that's worth one third of the way through a page. I only got another page and a half. To go.
Exactly. That's why maybe you want to be
Just
selective
kidding.
with the notes that you want to talk about.
So, a little musical note: when Theoden finally reaches for his sword and holds his sword for the first time, we get a wonderful fanfare for the Rohan theme, but it turns minor, and I love that it's like it's almost hopeful, but not yet. Not yet. There's something going on. I would like to ask why they buried their dead right outside their fucking city walls. It seems like a really weird choice.
Is it though?
It seems like the barrows for the. I mean, yeah. Think about it. If you were going to lay siege to a castle and you're going to kill them, while we're here, why don't we just go grab your dead and fling them over your walls at you? Like they did the kind of shit all the time.
Where have we buried our dead forever? In churchyards, inside our cities, in our homes, in our backyards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to put a body in a point of reverence, then you probably want it somewhere that you can keep it somewhat safe, not outside of the safety barrier. I don't know, especially like the royal family. Like, this is my son. He was heir to the Rohan, and my family line dies with me. I'm going to bury him down the road where an army's coming from. Okay, sure. You could have just thrown him in the water too.
See, this is because you're in the north, and in the north, people are respectful, and they only fight in respectful ways. It's only when you're in the south that they fight in disrespectful ways. This is the way that book is written.
I like that when Gandalf finally starts counseling Theoden, there is a moment where, so Theoden is listening to Gandalf, and he's rightfully accepting the counsel of Gandalf the White, because Gandalf the White is actually a good guy for the first time in the series. Like, you have a wizard that is purely empowered to be good. He has moral goodness in him, and yada, yada. And even though everything is going in his favor, there's a moment where they're sitting by the throne, or Gandalf is sitting to the right hand of the throne, and Theoden is sitting in his throne and listening to the options, and Gandalf reaches over and he puts his hand on Theoden's arm. And Theoden looks down at his arm, and his brow crinkles, and he looks like basically like Gandalf triggered his memory of Grima, Wormtongue. And there was that moment where Theoden felt like, oh, ew, there's somebody that's sitting to my right, a wizard sitting to my right telling me what to do. I don't like this. And he specifically, as soon as that happens, he pulls his arm away and he says the opposite of what Gandalf just told him. He decides the opposite that way. And I thought that was a nice touch that I don't remember noticing that the first time I watched this, that he was physically repulsed by Gandalf's advice as soon as Gandalf touched him. And that's the thing that set him off.
Interesting.
I don't know if you all noticed that or not, but
I
it was
did
pretty
not
cool.
pick that
I did
up.
not.
It adds an extra layer to that scene, and I would urge you to go back and watch it again.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, of course, we can't go past this without mentioning the line from Theoden that has become a sad line being repeated throughout history, unfortunately, that no parent should have to bury their child.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the way he delivers that, like, I don't care how many times I've seen this. I don't care that I don't care about Theodred. I just care about Theoden in that moment. And the way that actor pulls me in, holy fuck. He's got to be pulling from some real grief in his life or something like that. And that looks so genuine to me. And that's why that scene is a fucking classic. And,
there's a lot of
anybody
Theoden
that's dealt with that.
lines that I think hit really well.
Yeah, he's a cool king. Like, I would like to be in Theoden's kingdom. He seems like a good dude.
Well, he's not very tactically smart.
No,
but he's got a lot of good lines.
Yeah.
yeah, he's a very honorable man. He's just not always the brightest man, it seems.
Well, and we're not anywhere near there yet, but every time the man speaks before a war, I would absolutely go and fight to death for that man. Like, he is great at rallying those troops.
Yep, and then we cut back to Grima Wormtongue returning to Saruman and telling him what's going on there, and informing him about Aragorn and he's with an elf and a dwarf, or Gandalf he at least tells him about. And the one thing that I'd like to point out here, because this is largely just exposition showing that Saruman knows about this and showing that Grima is back with him, but at one point Saruman says to Grima, "You stink of horse."
Yes.
And I was like, bro, you have been hanging out with orcs that come out of mud pockets. Like, what are you talking
Quote,
about,
unquote, mud pocket.
Yeah, possibly
pockets.
shit pockets.
Yeah, you were talking to walking diarrhea factories, and you were worried that this man smells like a fucking horse?
Yeah.
Bro, check yourself.
Maybe he was more
Go-
maybe he came out as he was disgusted by it because he's just in that phase of his life, but maybe he was just secretly like, oh, you smell of horse instead of shit.
Yeah. I mean, he's trying to be polite for a little bit, maybe.
I'll tear your head right off your fucking neck, I swear to God.
Anyways, we come back to, I wanted to see if there's anything y'all had to say about the scene where we find out that Éowyn is good with a sword, and they have this little bit of tension between Aragorn and Éowyn where he acknowledges her as a warrior. Anything to say about that?
Definitely foreshadowing, but otherwise not a ton to say about it.
I like it. I mean, I like it that we're not just having male warriors, you know. I think that's a good thing. And actually, in Tolkien's history, there are, you know, especially in Rohan, there is like a line of female rulers and warriors and whatnot. So it's, you know.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. But now we head back to the stupid fat hobbit, which I thought was one of, like, I hate it as somebody that I'm not exactly a skinny hobbit myself, so I'm not there's part of me that hates the insult, but you got to admit he delivers it so fucking well.
Right.
Stupid fat hobbit.
Like, God damn. He eats every letter of those words.
Yep.
Oh. It's wonderful. And of course, then we get the classic potatoes. Boil them, mash them, put them in a stew.
That's not the way I remember it.
How do you remember it?
It's just memes have ruined my brain. It's boil them, mash them, stick them in your ass. This is what
Oh, wow. I don't think I've seen that meme. Whoa.
Yep, that's a different meme than what I've seen.
You need to leave. That is disgusting.
Yeah.
We now know what sort of parts of the internet that Keith has been on.
There's another song that they made of that also. It's like potatoes, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Potatoes.
Yeah. Oh, see, I've seen those songs with the remix of him saying that. That's how I remember the line: boil them, mash them, put them in a stew, stick them in a stew. However he says it.
Stick them in a stew.
I'd like to say too that we're finally getting a scene of what Happy Smeagol is like. And I like Happy Smeagol. Happy Smeagol is fun.
First, before we get fully Happy Smeagol, we have this. I love the cinematography of the reverse shot of him talking to himself, of Smeagol talking to Gollum.
Yes.
Because they're in the same setting. It's just the camera is shooting from a different spot whenever he's Smeagol and whenever he's Gollum. And their two distinct personalities are great. And it's like, this is where you start to root for Smeagol. And they kind of rug pull you later, but as soon as we told him to go away and never come back, and he listened, then you have happy puppy Smeagol, and it's almost heartbreaking. Where he's like, look, guys, I got you a rabbit, and you know
he's bouncing around and tossing it in your lap. He's such even as stupid fat hobbit says, you're ruining it. That kind of like he's still kind of adorable, even though I don't want to eat like you want to eat. You can have one raw, we'll have one cooked. That's fine. I find it wonderful that I have seen people when they watch this movie say things along the lines of, this has to be a fully CGI character, right? There's no human that's like bouncing around making these lines. And it's like, no, I mean, you're part right that it is CGI, but it's based off, there is an actor in the scene doing these moments. That's why you'll see dirt move when he moves in a direction. And Andy Serkis was actually on the set with them, bouncing around, making these noises.
Where he's so like proud of himself, and he raises his fist and that little noise, and like it's like it feels so real and authentic.
The first time ever, and I never thought I would say it. Like, you almost want to give Smeagol a hug. It's like, ew, you want to hug Gollum? No, I don't want to hug Gollum. We want to hug Smeagol. We don't like Gollum.
And just how upset he is at them cooking it is pretty. You know,
he's full on pouting like a pouting like a toddler in the corner.
He even makes like a fart noise, like or whatever. Like
arms crossed, the whole works.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he gets the whole point where he's actually tells, this is right before, right after, right before, where he literally tells Gollum to go away, leave and never come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I watched that in the theater, because remember, I had never seen this before, no preconceived notions of what was going to happen. I was so happy for Smeagol in this moment. I was like, oh my God, yes! That's what makes his betrayal, his inevitable betrayal later. That's what makes it so much harder. Like I don't know if I said it in the last episode, but I'm going to stick to it again. I'll say it as many times as people ask me. The absolute worst moment in this entire trilogy is when Frodo betrays Smeagol. That is, I hate watching it because I feel so bad for Smeagol because he didn't do anything wrong right then.
Can we get a drop in of Smeagol saying "Give it to us raw"? Because that could have potential use in the future. I imagine, but it's like Smeagol. You know, like I was getting the vapors. Oh my God!
Maybe that should be the title episode.
Give
part
it
2.
to us
Give
raw.
it to us raw. Raw and wriggling.
Ew.
That is what he says, right? Raw and wriggling.
It is, but in that context, it really messes with my brain.
Moving on.
Obviously, nobody here is into tentacle porn, at least not publicly.
This is gonna be this is part 2 of 3. I can feel it right now.
Why? Because we're already at 49 minutes and we haven't gotten halfway through the movie yet?
Yes, that's why.
Hey, it's y'all. I made a promise and I've been sticking to it. Y'all have just been talking so much. It's hard to. So hey, I can't help that the movie. Like, do you want me to skip the next scene? If I don't, because the next scene is where Frodo gets captured by the humans that are wearing masks and they actually look scary for a minute.
But they don't have that great eye makeup.
And the Oliphant.
But in this business of show, you have to have the heart of an angel and the hide of an elephant.
I get to see the Oliphant.
The Oliphant, yes. We get to see more humans from Mordor, and the line is made about, the evil guy laying on the ground, and I think this is where Faramir says something along the lines of, I bet he believed in his country too, kind of thing. Yeah, like, they're just soldiers on both sides, nobody...
Which is nice to see somebody like that who's actively fighting them, like, recognizing that, because it's a young man he's talking about, you know?
He should be propagandized to the point where he just thinks they're evil.
Right.
But he straight up asks, I wonder if his heart was really evil, or if he's just like, born into this and somehow, like I love that kind of introspect, but I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so like kind of goes with territory. So then we find out that dwarf women have beards, which is always good to find out about.
More reasons why I'm a dwarf.
Hey, like, God bless. Like I think it was years ago we talked about facial hair on men and women and how it's you got to be kind of open minded to it. Keith, you were working on your love of facial hair. You're like, you haven't made out with anybody with facial hair yet, but you were talking about maybe
one day if I could find a nice dwarf woman, I could move past
dwarf
that,
ladies. His email is keith@screenshareandchill.com.
My only note for this part is Gimli shouting that was deliberate, and it's so it's so funny. It's stupid and it's cheesy, but I could see him trying to say that maybe if there was something different, but he like fell off his horse and landed on his back. Like, no, it was not deliberate, Gimli.
But that's that's the charm of Gimli, is he's very prideful, and so he's not ever going to let anything that makes him look foolish go without comment.
It was deliberate. That was deliberate.
But I'm sure the dwarf fans out there, the dwarf community are very, and I mean this in the fact of like fans of dwarfs in fantasy media are, just to clarify, are probably very vocal about the fact that this is not tongue in cheek. I've literally seen people make comments online saying that dwarfs were not very well represented in this movie because they're just presented as largely comic relief, and dwarfs as a general rule, they're kind of the most serious out of the races.
And they're fucking badasses too.
Yeah, so like I don't know. Like, it could be argued that those scenes like that, it's like, okay, but you gotta have these moments of levity, especially considering we go right into learning all about the Arwen Aragorn backstory. does this happen here in the book, or does this happen all along? Or like, where do you learn about Arwen and Aragorn? Is it just through conversation, or do you see flashbacks?
You don't learn a whole lot about it in the books. You get little flashbacks of it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from other lore that they kind of wove in here.
Can I say, speaking of Aragorn and this love triangle that this movie is kind of trying to set up, the scene of him eating the soup that she brings him, I love it. It feels like it's straight up lifted out of Arrested Development or something. The way he puts it in his mouth and then just like
so watery, and yet there's a smack of ham to it.
It's hot ham water.
He's just holding it there,
nodding at her,
nodding. Yeah,
and it was just a congealed mess of something.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what it was, whether it was just fat or like uncooked pastry or something.
Yeah, it looks
like an uncooked dumpling or something.
Soggy, nasty bread. Yeah,
it looked like an uncooked dumpling in water with an onion floating in it. Is what it looked like.
Yeah, I laugh every time.
Yeah.
And then he dreams of his true love.
And then, in the dream, we see Aragorn and Arwen. And I would like to make one little suggestion that I think they could have really done a lot with very little effort here. If Aragorn was clean shaven in the flashbacks, that would have, I think, elevated and the understanding of what we're looking at immediately.
Yeah.
It would have put a time jump in there that it wouldn't need anything other than just him being clean shaven, and we all would have known exactly what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Except for I just don't think he's ever clean shaven.
How long ago was this in story wise? Like, was this 20 years ago, 50 years ago?
I think it was when they were at Rivendell before they set out.
Like, when did they fall in love and he left? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When was the last time they talked since they broke up, basically?
I don't think they have. I think they...
Right.
Well, yeah, she gave him her Evenstar, and then he was leaving in the middle of the night, and she caught him, and she says, well, I'll see you when you get back. And he's like, I'm not coming back. She's like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, I'm no good for you. You got to go do your own thing. He tries to give back her engagement ring. I mean, I'm sorry, her necklace.
Yeah, that's when he was leaving.
She says, no, you can keep it.
That's when
but
he was
then he still leaves. Well, okay, right. I'm telling you what. If I'm living with my girlfriend, and then she comes up to me one day and says, I'm leaving you, I'm moving out, here's your engagement ring back, and I say, no, keep it, and she leaves, I'm going to count that as a breakup. You know what I'm saying? They broke up. So, I mean, in my mind, they're not together anymore. He left. He's not continuing the relationship anymore.
We were on a break!
Here, he thinks she's
like,
going.
He wasn't planning on coming back. It wasn't.
He thinks she's going, but he's obviously still in love with her. But I believe by the time the elves show up to Helm's Deep, he might have a little, the elves have not left yet. You know what I mean? Like, something has changed.
Oh, yeah. When in the original filming, Arwen was present for the battle at Helm's Deep.
Really?
So interesting. Oh, yeah. You didn't know that? She's still in a couple of scenes. If you watch, especially one top-down, like, aerial footage, you can see on the right-hand side Arwen pushing people through.
That's a great little factoid.
Yeah. But they cut it out because they felt that it was better for her that the only involvement she has is through memory. So he's doing this all for her memory kind of thing. So yeah, I was really curious how long it had been since they'd seen each other, because now it makes me think, after seeing the backstory, when I see them in Fellowship of the Ring, when they saw each other when Frodo was dying, that conversation has a lot more weight if there's been a few years, like if it's been 10 years or 20 years. Like, no, that obviously to humans we see it as a little bit quicker than other people do. But
if I might be confused by what you're saying, that scene of her saying, no, I'm breaking up with you, that was at the time they were at Rivendell with Frodo when he's recovering. Like, that was when they left Rivendell as the Fellowship.
Oh, see, I took this as something that had been happening a long time ago.
No.
Yeah, no.
Like, so they were still going out in the beginning of the movie when he was Strider.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then she was supposed to go away after they left Rivendell into the what are they called?
The eternal lands.
Oh, see, now the story that I've known all this time, even watching this movie years ago up until this moment, I thought that that story of him and her falling in love was when he lived in Rivendell. That's why he should have been clean shaven, because I'm thinking it's fucking 40 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, no.
You dumb bastard. It's a schooner, not a sailboat.
All right, well, I guess that answers my question, because I'm like, that conversation when she hasn't, I'm thinking she hasn't seen him in a long time. And then the first time they interact is her putting her sword on his shoulder and saying, a ranger has been snuck up on. And it's like, ooh, hey, hi, how are you? oh, he's got to get to Rivendell quickly. Like they'd put their feelings to the side. Whereas now, knowing that he just saw her a week before,
right?
Them seeing each other in the forest is okay, no big deal, whatever.
Well, it might not have been a week because there was in the books it's noted that for those 15 years that takes place between Gandalf, Frodo, Bilbo leaving the Shire and Gandalf coming back to tell Frodo he's got to fuck off.
Was Strider in the corner of that inn the whole time?
No, Strider is out hunting for Gollum. That's the hunt for Gollum thing. Like Gandalf has employed Strider to track down Gollum. That's how they find out that Gollum was in Mordor and that Mordor knows about Baggins.
Arwen should have gone with him.
Yeah.
Why didn't she go with him if they were dating?
Daddy wouldn't let her.
Yeah.
Sounds like she wasn't very committed to the cause.
It's Daddy.
Daddy wasn't very committed to the relationship, in case you didn't catch that. Dad's not a fan.
Yeah. I consent. Does Elrond consent?
When these wargs attack, they say, the Star Wars fan in me cringes because they say make for lower ground. And I'm like, ooh, that's a mistake,
We already talked about Aragorn's horse, I think, right?
Did we?
We did that in the last episode.
Yes. Yep.
Aragorn bought his horse and then he bought the
we talked about
stunt double for
What a good horse, by the way. Fucking what a banger of a horse he got. Saves his damn life.
Yeah, and because right here we have the fight against the wargs. The warg CGI holds up pretty well.
We gotta go back to that. That's not the horse he had. That's the horse he told them to free because he was done fighting. He said, let him go. He has had enough of fighting. And Brago is set free. And Brago's the one that saves him.
Awesome.
The horse comes back?
Yeah, that's even better.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
That is a free horse.
Huh.
He's been retired and he comes back to save him.
I love that like 100 times incredible. More now. Yeah.
That's fucking cool. Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
We have the warg scenario where the horse is going to save Aragorn from it later, but first we have the wargs attacking the people running away to Helm's Deep. And I will say that the warg CGI held up all right. It was it reminded me of like early Star Wars, like the episode 1, 2, 3 Star Wars. Like it was good enough where it didn't pull me out, but I wouldn't put it up there with some of the best CGI I've ever seen.
Right.
It was on DC level. Yeah. I'm sorry if that sounds like an insult, but if anything, it's insulting DC because this was made 22 years ago or whatever now.
The timing and choreography of all the stuff falling and piling on Gimli is great. Like even when he gets saved, it's extra weight that falls down on the stack that's laying on him, and he's like,
"Yep."
I have friends that have a hard time with scenes even like that when they're joking. Like friends that are claustrophobic when people are getting crushed like that. They're like, "I gotta look away. I can't deal with it."
Yeah, I get it.
God bless. Things like that you don't realize until you have a friend that has one of those afflictions, and then you see them sweating when these scenes come on. You're like, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put you through fucking Nam sitting here watching a movie.
So do we think this was supposed to fake us out because we know that I wonder if it's supposed to fake us out that we're supposed to believe that Aragorn has really died because Gandalf died in the first one, but we already know that Gandalf has come back, so it's kind of already taken away its edge of anyone can die and no one is sacred.
I feel like it's supposed to, but it's
supposed to fake
Walking Dead at this point.
Yeah, right.
It's supposed to, but it's Glenn's death where I'm like, or the first time Glenn dies, and you're just like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't believe you anymore.
Right.
I simply don't believe that anybody else is going to die in this movie. The only person that I'm curious about dying is Frodo at the end. Is Frodo going to die at the end? That's the only one I'm kind of curious about because everybody else, as far as I can tell, y'all got plot armor a mile thick. So, So yeah, Aragorn's death. The first time I watched it, I was almost a little bit annoyed because I was like, all right, hurry up and get him back to the group. Unless something major happens in his little side journey, which. Spoiler, nothing happens. He sees the troops, but that doesn't really change anything. He just ends up being the one to tell Theoden about the troops coming instead of the scouts.
He gets saved by the horse. That's the side.
Yeah, but he could have just had the horse. Because
he let the horse free.
Plot out. Well, and it's not like he refers to the horse by name, and the horse's name is important in the third movie.
He does. He does say its name though when it comes to get him.
That's how you know that's the one that you freed.
That's what made me realize that when she said that.
But if you lifted that out, we would never know that.
Right.
It would have been fine. They could have called him Mario or Luigi and it would have been fine. Now, we don't have any Italian representation in the movies. This is anti-Italian discrimination, is what this is.
This is my horse, Luigi.
Look at my horse. My horse is amazing.
His brother Mario is back at the barn.
If you've got a lot of money, he gets a little testy, so you better stay away from him. Oh, and I have the question, too, that the warg that takes Aragorn off the cliff, I noticed this, I can't believe I've forgotten to mention it until now. So if you watch that scene again, what was the warg's plan? It was just going to jump right off the cliff with him? Like, I don't know many creatures that are like land-born creatures that will charge a creature on a cliff and just jump off the cliff with the creature.
Have you ever owned a dog?
Have you ever met a Belgian Malinois?
Is that a person or an animal?
It's a kind of dog. It's a kind of dog, and they are crazy, but in a good, like, they're used in a lot of protection and stuff because they do not have any self-preservation.
I've seen dogs jump out of moving vehicles because they saw something that caught their attention. So it's like they're not working with the brightest colors in the crayon.
But it's funny to watch it because you also so I'll take your word for that. But if you watch it again and you put it in slow motion, you'll see that the warg is charging at Aragorn to knock him off the cliff, like, ha, we're both gonna fall to our death. And then right at the last moment, it's like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die. And it tries to turn around at it's got 2 steps to go and then it slides off the edge. And I was
Kelly,
like,
that tracks.
That's a bad time to
that's a dog thinking that there's gonna be more land there, but then there's not.
100%. I've seen it happen with my.
How do these creatures continue to exist in the gene pool?
They made friends with humans.
They came and sat by the campfire. That's how.
Sauron, as we've discussed in earlier movies in fantasy, one of my problems with fantasy tropes, we catch up with Sauron inventing gunpowder.
Yeah, science.
For the first time.
See, science is.
He's doing science, and science is evil. That's what the church tells us: is that don't do science because only the evil people do science.
I love him grabbing Wormtongue's hand with the candle and like moving it away. That's a nice little touch.
Well, you've got to have that. It's like it's such a trope at this point. Any fantasy movie that has gunpowder, you have to have somebody with a candle or a torch get really close to look at it, and somebody else has to push them away. Like
also, that the whole culvert and the explosion thing. Very, very not emphasized in the book. It's there, but it's like just another thing that happens in the battle. We'll get to it. But I just want to point out how this movie emphasizes that this battle station has a small flaw that a singular person needs to get in
singular
there.
Torpedo could expose.
It's very Death Star.
So what you're saying is Saruman is really the Rebel Alliance.
Yes.
And they're pro-science. Pro-industry, they're pro-jobs, they're pro-job creators. Saruman and Sauron are really just job creators.
They also
what you're seeing is
they have a diverse culture.
Through over-regulation, the job creators are being stifled. Right. Don't these stupid hobbitses understand trickle-down economics?
Obviously.
So we get the classic and wonderful "to war" line where
Yes.
Sauron cheers to the crowd. Amazing.
Oh, the even like it's so terrible and frightening and awful that even Wormtongue is is crying because look at this. There's like 10,000
unscripted. Brad Dourif just did that on command because he thought he was so impressed. He thought they would make sense for him, and the director was like, "Holy shit, I was not expecting that, but hell yeah, I'm keeping that." And I think this another one of those moments where people don't realize how amazing of an actor. You don't understand how hard it is to cry or how to cry one tear. Like this man has a control over his body that humans don't normally possess.
Hi, everybody. It's Brad Dourif.
And I read it as both. Like it's both great and terrible and just overwhelming, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like this is awful. This is incredible. My body does not know how to react, so I'm overwhelmed, and something has to come out.
Factory reset time.
Yeah.
I believe this is the scene where they went to a live sports match to record the crowd.
Cool.
Yeah, and they had them. He put it on the big screen, the big monitor that you have the player stats on or whatever, and he put the words that he wanted them to say, and it was something along the lines of like "grow gash, do kash, grow gash, bro kash" or something like that. And he just had them repeating it over and over again, and then they just kind of looped it back on itself, and that's where you get the orc chant. Is I forget if it was Australian football, like rugby or something like that. Either way,
very similar to the. So this is how Liberty. Not that scene. the Clone Wars have begun scene at the end of Attack of the Clones, where the Chancellor, Yoda, and Mace Windu, I think, are standing on the balcony, and we see all the clones and the ships landing. These are movies from similar times. I'm going to look up which came first, just so I know.
The chicken or the egg?
All right, so The Two Towers was December 5th, 2002. And the Attack of the Clones was May 16th, 2002. So you heard it here first. The Lord of the Rings has once again ripped off Star Wars.
Yes, because they had time to reshoot everything at that moment.
Right, yeah.
Which scene were you talking about? I was looking up something else. How did they copy?
The showing of the army. It's staged very similar to the reveal of the clone army, where they're looking
the clone army.
On all the...
Yeah, because nobody's ever thought about showing a wide shot of
right.
thousands of troops before.
They're kind of all ripping
Lawrence
off
of Arabia would like a word with you.
Just saying.
Hey all, that's about all the time we have for today. Join us next week as we conclude The Two Towers. If you're not already, please consider finding us on social media, leaving us a review, and telling your friends about us. For independent creators, every little bit helps. For Jamie, Keith, and Kelly, be good to yourselves out there. Bye for now.
I'm going to call the police. You go ahead, call them! Call anybody you want. They can't do anything to me. Not anymore. And nor can any of you.